send Mr. Hall to our congressman, talk about reformulated gasoline. We don't think it's too good. Our next talk is entitled An Isotopic Tracer Study of Sulfur Exchange and Cold Liquefaction Catalyst. The authors are Diane Milburn, Rita Hardy, and Bertrand Davis from the Center for Applied Energy Research, and Diane Milburn is our speaker.
Commercially available catalysts which are used in hydroprocessing of the heavy, high-boiling liquids, such as those that are produced in cold liquefaction, typically consist of either nickel or cobalt-promoted molybdenum on aluminum oxide. A good deal of effort has gone into developing these catalysts with high dispersion of metal on the support and of maintaining this high dispersion throughout the lifetime of the catalyst to minimize deactivation and extend the lifetime. The series that, when one looks at the literature over the past 10 to 15 years, you see that there is quite a good deal of debate in terms of describing the active phase and especially the role of the promoter in the catalyst. One thing that is sort of generally agreed upon is that the active phase is a metal sulfide. So with this in mind, we set out on this study trying to use sort of a different technique in looking at the working catalyst, and that is the use of the natural abundance of a stable sulfur isotope, which is sulfur 34, in comparing the products with the reactants and trying to get a handle for the working catalyst to process conditions. The samples which I will be discussing have been obtained from the largest currently operating cold liquefaction facility in this country, which is the pilot plant at Wilsonville, Alabama. It's a 6-ton per day coal processing facility. These particular catalysts that were used in this run are a nickel moly on aluminum oxide extrudate purchased from the Amoco company. The run in question is run 257, which was made with an Illinois No. 6 bituminous coal from the Burning Star mine, and it was made in the so-called close-coupled integrated two-stage liquefaction process configuration. Go into that just a little bit. What this means in terms of the catalyst is that you have two reactors sitting side by side. The feed to the first reactor is coal, hydrogen, a process solvent, and a heavier resist material which is produced in the deashing unit. This contains some coal ash and other solids. The first stage reactor is considered to be the dissolver, and it is run at the lowest possible severity conditions, and the function is primarily to dissolve the coal at the lowest conditions. The products from that reactor then are passed directly to the second stage reactor in this configuration with no pressure let down, and the conditions here are a little bit higher temperature and higher pressure, and this is where they consider the hydro-treating reactions to be occurring, and those include such things as hydrodesulfurization, hydrodenitrogenation, deoxygenation, cracking, hydrogenation, that type of thing. The reactors themselves are an emulated bed type reactor, shown here. Approximately 200 pounds of catalyst are loaded into each of these reactors, and in this particular run, both reactors were run in catalytic mode with the same catalyst. For the initial period of the run, the reactors were in batch deactivation mode, such that the only catalyst that was removed at a given time was a small, about a pound, for sampling purposes out of the 200 pounds, and then that equivalent amount of catalyst was added to maintain constant bed. So that with the mixing, our samples had very constant age, and we did not see an age profile of the process. After the first 20 to 30 days, they began operating with addition withdrawal, so that significant fractions of the catalyst bed were added and withdrawn, and those were not useful in this particular type of study. The samples come to us covered in a process-derived oil. We extract them prior to analysis with tetrahydrofuran and a Soxhlet apparatus. Before analysis, then dry them in a vacuum oven and do our analysis. Before starting a run at Wilsonville, they pre-sulfide the catalyst, and this is done in a mixture of dimethyl disulfide and a diesel-like oil with hydrogen. And what is done is the ratio much closer to that is recorded in the literature. Our nickel catalyst up here, sulfited either with dimethyl disulfide and tetralin, just to mimic what they do at Wilsonville, or with H2S where we don't have carbon deposition. And that complication shows a higher ratio, which is more in line with what we measured at Wilsonville. What we plan to do with this is to obtain a feed and do a reaction with a sulfur species which has a different relative abundance of the sulfur 34 and watch the exchange on these. And also to prepare some some unsupported catalysts and watch the effect of particle size. If we have large crystals, how that exchange compares with a more dispersed, smaller particle size. So to conclude, we do feel like this is a useful technique in large-scale reactors. There are some workers who have used the radioisotope sulfur 35 to trace this, and they report that they see anywhere from 20 to 40% rapid exchange, or 20 to 40% of the sulfur exchanging rapidly initially, and then they also see this gradual, more gradual exchange later on. It's nice to know that laboratory studies do have some relevance to the real world, and so this, our technique is also non-radioactive, so that helps also. Again, we do see the two different rates of exchange, the rapid and the more gradual. And again, one possible explanation is that all the efforts in preparation of these small crystallites have been of some value, and that we are actually retaining the small crystallite size through at least this time period that we're observing. And also that there will be some interesting work, hopefully, that will come out of this in looking at both the effects of promoters and of crystals.
Any questions? Barbara?
I want to show my ignorance and ask what the spins of the different isotopes of sulfur are and whether NMR could be applied.
I do not know. We do not have capabilities to do.
That would be real nice to see your slow and fast, in contact.
In fact, I don't think our NMR will keep us on state.
We don't have that capability right now.
Someone else might have something on.
Or we have to do a solid state. I don't think.
Is sulfur 1/2 any of the isotopes?
Not the 34. I don't think we have that. Requires a probe. That I don't think there is any. Or at least I don't know. It's possible. But I don't think the probe, NMR probe has that. Yeah. Not the 34.
Correlate with the hydrotreating
I can't hear.
With activity?
with activity?
In this short,
Do the exchange rates correlate with the activity, hydrotreating activity?
in these short times, we don't see any change, and or at least Wilsonville doesn't report it. It's kind of hard to tell because it's a hodgepodge of reactions. Exactly. Maybe when we go with the model system, it will be easier to tell.
Oppositely, does it correlate with deactivity?
Again, they don't see any significant deactivation in not in 30 days.
Why do they start adding catalyst?
Well, they're trying to sort of reach a steady state in what they call resid conversion. And so once they reach this point, then a lot of the addition and withdrawal is to compensate for, if there is a decrease. So that in this first portion, that's why they don't really observe any decrease in activity. It's hard to tell sometimes what Wilsonville, why.
Yeah, maybe I missed this point, but why do you have a different natural abundance in coal and in put in?
I believe that the sulfur, the dimethyl disulfide, originates from petroleum. And the geologists tell me that depending on the location of the deposit and the time in which it was deposited and many other factors just lead to a relative, difference in relative limits.
Why should the two catalysts have different relative limits?
They were pre-sulfided with, say, with the same
Same H2S.
sulfide. Oh, you mean the two
catalysts.
different, or the two different reactors? They were different batches. They were pre-sulfided in separate batches and then combined.
What are they pre-sulfided with?
Dimethyl disulfide.
And that had different limits?
Slightly. Not drastically.